The crack of a flawless shot rang through the elite shooters club, bouncing off polished walls and stirring applause from wealthy patrons clad in sleek designer gear. Blake Radcliffe lowered his custom Remington with the confidence of a man who had never missed. A smug grin spread across his sun-kissed face as the target revealed yet another bullseye. This was his domain, a gilded enclave where precision, privilege, and power formed a wall few could scale. Applause still echoed when the front doors swung open to reveal someone who clearly didn't belong. Emma Miller stood just inside the grand entrance, her fingers curled tightly around a worn leather purse. In a sea of high-end sporting wear and polished boots, her faded jeans and simple blue cardigan looked almost defiant. At 35, she blended into the background too easily, overlooked by youth and unrecognized by success. The receptionist behind the marble counter cast a single, dismissive glance in her direction. When Emma quietly requested to join the open practice session, the woman offered only a disinterested smile. "Membership cards only," she said. But Emma calmly produced a crumpled envelope. "I have a day pass." It was a gift. Across the room, Blake had taken notice. At 42, he was still at the pinnacle of his game, Olympic gold medalist, 5-time national champion, and heir to an oil fortune. He leaned back, voice loud and theatrical. Well, well. Looks like someone took a wrong turn on the way to Walmart." His entourage erupted in laughter as Emma quietly made her way toward the basic range. Rebecca Johnson, the club's manager and a former competitor herself, winced at the remark. She said nothing. Emma chose a spot at the end of the range, carefully unpacking a cloth-wrapped Glock 19 from her purse. Plain and practical, it contrasted starkly with the ornate custom weapons nearby. Blake and his friends had drifted closer, the scent of mockery thick in the air. $10 says she can't hit the target," one sneered. Blake chuckled, "Make it 10,000. I bet she's never held a gun." Then he swaggered over to Emma's lane, wearing the kind of grin that only the confident, or the cruel, could afford. "Ma'am," he said, voice slick with condescension, "you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a knitting circle." Emma raised her eyes, hazel and steady, and met his gaze with a quiet calm that gave him pause. "I'm just here to practice," she replied. Blake leaned in, louder now. "Practice? Honey, this place is for serious shooters. 10 grand says you can't hit the bullseye from 50 yards. Emma's expression didn't change, though something flickered in her eyes. "I don't have that kind of money," she said simply. Blake smirked wider. "If by some miracle you hit it, I pay. If you miss, you leave and never come back. Deal?" Rebecca had stepped forward, concern on her face. "Mr. Radcliffe, perhaps we should let our guest shoot in peace." Blake waved her off. "We're just having a little fun." Emma glanced at the simple gold band on her finger. She twisted it once, subtly. "All right," she said. Blake's eyebrows rose in amusement. "Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a show." He hadn't noticed how Emma's posture shifted as she picked up her Glock. Her spine straightened, shoulders loosened, and feet found a balanced stance with practiced ease. Her grip was precise, her breathing even. No one there recognized the discipline in her movements or understood the quiet gravity behind the ring on her hand, a ring that once belonged to a legend in SEAL Team 6. 3 years earlier, Emma had stood under a pale April sky, the sharp report of rifle volleys cutting through the solemn hush at Arlington National Cemetery. A folded American flag pressed to her chest had never felt heavier. Below the green earth lay Master Chief Nathan Miller, her husband, her teacher, her ghost. The official story was a helicopter crash during a classified operation. But Emma knew better. Some truths would remain buried behind redacted pages forever. They had met in Vermont, in the most unremarkable way, a downtown coffee shop where a polite apology turned into an entire afternoon of conversation. She was an accountant, stable and precise. He was a warrior, forged in shadows and secrecy. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony under quiet skies, surrounded by friends and men who watched every doorway like it might bite. Marriage to a Navy SEAL came with long silences and sudden departures. Nathan would vanish for months and return with fresh scars and haunted eyes. "I wish I could tell you everything," he would whisper in the dark, brushing a calloused thumb across her cheek. "But I can tell you this, you're the reason I come home." It was during one of those rare stretches stateside that he first took Emma to a shooting range. He'd injured his knee on a mission and insisted that if he was going to be away, she needed to be able to defend herself. He adjusted her stance gently, corrected her grip with patient hands. What began as a precaution soon became a ritual. She proved a quick study, nailing her first bullseye with such control that even Nathan had blinked. "You've got the three things every great shooter needs," he said. "Steady hands, perfect eyes, and a calm heart." For 3 years, their time together often centered around the range. Nathan taught her everything: sight alignment, trigger discipline, breath control. "Shooting isn't about rage," he'd explain. "It's about quieting everything else." Emma learned not just the skill, but the serenity. Sometimes his teammates joined them. One, Michael Reeves, had once muttered, "Boss says you're better than half the guys he's trained." Nathan had just smiled, not correcting the statement. 2 days before his final mission, they went shooting for the last time. Nathan had been quiet, watching her more than his own targets. "Promise me something," he said softly, voice thick with something unspoken. "Promise me you'll keep practicing, even if I'm not there." She had nodded, unaware of the weight behind his words. After the funeral, the guns were locked away. Emma moved to Boston and buried herself in work at a corporate firm where no one knew her past. The range became a memory, until last week, when a package arrived from Michael Reeves. Inside was a day pass to the Elite Shooters Club, and a handwritten note that read only, "Time to make good on that promise." The envelope had arrived with a handwritten note, short and unmistakably pointed: "Nathan would want you to keep your promise. 3 years is long enough. Come back to the living." And so, Emma found herself standing on the polished floor of the Elite Shooters Club, Blake Radcliffe's challenge lingering in the air like the scent of cordite after a shot. Something shifted inside her, a spark reignited, faint but unmistakable. As she lifted the Glock, her body remembered what her soul had forgotten. The world tightened to a narrow focus: her hands, the weapon, and the target. One breath in. A slow exhale. Then the trigger broke with a clean, practiced squeeze. The crack echoed through the quiet range, and for a heartbeat, everything held still. The motorized hum of the target retrieval system filled the silence. Blake's smirk remained, but a flicker of doubt passed through his eyes as he took in Emma's textbook stance. The paper inched forward, the mechanical clicks intensifying the suspense. When it finally stopped, all chatter ceased. A perfect hole marked the dead center of the bullseye. Emma lowered her weapon with unshaken calm. Blake snatched the target, examining it closely. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, but the sharpness in his tone betrayed his confidence. Rebecca stepped forward, her cool professionalism giving way to genuine respect. "That was an exceptional shot," she said. "Miss Miller?" "Emma," she replied quietly. "Emma Miller." Rebecca gave a nod, her smile both apologetic and impressed. "Perhaps you'd like to try our advanced range. You're clearly not a beginner." Before Emma could answer, Blake cut in. "One lucky shot doesn't make her a pro." His voice was louder now, posturing for the gathering crowd. "Let's see if she can do it again. This time, with real stakes." A murmur passed through the room as Blake pulled out his checkbook with a theatrical flourish. $50,000, he declared. "Hit 3 bullseyes in a row at 75 yards. Miss even one, and you admit you cheated, then walk out for good." Senator Williams, a frequent presence at the club, placed a hand on Blake's shoulder. "Blake, maybe this isn't the time." Blake shrugged him off. "What's the matter?" Afraid her little trick won't work twice. Emma considered leaving. She hadn't come for drama. But Blake's arrogance, so loud, so sure, ignited a quiet resolve. Not just for herself, but for every person who'd ever been pushed aside. "I'll take your challenge," she said. Her voice was soft but firm. "On one condition, the $50,000 goes to the Veteran Support Foundation if I win." Blake hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Fine. It's not like you're going to win anyway." Emma stepped toward the longer range. Rebecca caught up to her, concern etched across her features. "Miss Miller," she warned, "Mr. Radcliffe holds the club record at this distance. No one's beaten it in 5 years." Emma offered a nod. "Thank you for the heads up, Miss Johnson. But I'll be fine." Rebecca studied her with growing curiosity. There was a calm in Emma that didn't match her humble appearance. Meanwhile, Blake was now putting on a show for the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we're about to witness either the most impressive fluke in this club's history, or the most spectacular failure. 3 bullseyes at 75 yards with a standard handgun. Let's see what our amateur has." Emma loaded her magazines with careful precision. Nathan's voice echoed in her mind, "When the pressure's on, fall back on your training. Let your body remember what your brain might forget." The room fell silent. All eyes were fixed on her. For the first shot, she took her time, adjusting for distance, recalibrating her rhythm. The crack of the Glock was followed by a perfect strike. Bullseye. Blake's jaw tensed. The second shot came faster. A slight shift of her feet, a steady exhale, and another direct hit. Before the third shot, Emma twisted her wedding band once, grounding herself in memory. Nathan's presence seemed to steady her hands. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet tore through the air and struck the center of the target once again. 3 bullseyes. The room held its breath. Blake's face had drained of color. Rebecca returned, holding the 3 targets for everyone to see. No trickery. No fluke. Just pure, practiced skill. "Congratulations, Ms. Miller," she said, her admiration unfiltered now. "That was remarkable." Blake stormed forward, snatching the targets and inspecting them obsessively. "This is impossible," he hissed. "No one walks in off the street and shoots like this." She rigged it. Emma's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. "We had an agreement, Mr. Radcliffe." "Agreement with a cheater," Blake snapped. "I'm not paying 50 grand based on a trick." Rebecca stepped in. "Mr. Radcliffe, this room was full of witnesses, including Senator Williams. The shots were clean." Blake turned on her. "Know your place, Rebecca. One word from me to the board and you're gone." The threat silenced her, but not the crowd, who now watched Blake with discomfort. Emma remained still. "If you believe I cheated," she said evenly, "we can take this somewhere more private." Blake misread her quiet tone. "Private? So you can dodge the consequences?" "No. Let's settle this here and now." He turned back to the audience. 1 week from today. A formal challenge. 10 stations. Varying distances. Club-provided equipment. No room for tricks. Emma had walked into this day simply to honor a promise, but now it was something else. She couldn't back down. "I accept," she said. "Same stakes, $50,000 to the Veteran Support Foundation." Blake extended his hand, his smile cold. "Deal. And when I win, you explain publicly how you pulled off today's little performance." The crowd dispersed slowly, whispers trailing behind them. Rebecca approached once more. "That was either very brave or very foolish," she said. "Blake doesn't take losing well, and he's got deep roots here." Emma nodded, her hands finally starting to tremble with spent adrenaline. "I didn't come looking for trouble. I just came to practice." Rebecca tilted her head. Yet you shoot like a professional. Who are you, really? Emma gathered her things, the Glock back in its case. Just someone keeping a promise, she said quietly. What neither she nor Rebecca noticed was Blake already on his phone, pacing in the corner. His voice was low but urgent as he gave orders to his assistant, find out everything about Emma Miller. No matter what it takes. There was something in the way she shot, something he recognized but hadn't seen in years. A precision that didn't come from a hobby or luck. A technique honed under pressure. Military. Tactical. Real. And for the first time in a very long while, Blake Radcliffe was afraid. The penthouse overlooked the Charles River, lights shimmering in the water below, but Blake Radcliffe barely noticed. He swirled aged scotch in a crystal tumbler, the familiar post-victory ritual now serving only to steady his nerves. Jessica Thompson lounged nearby, phone in hand, eyes scanning social media. Her voice cut through the quiet. They're calling her the unknown marksman. Someone uploaded a video, blurry, but that last shot. It's going viral. Blake downed the scotch in one motion. One lucky day doesn't make her a marksman. By next week, everyone will know she's a fraud. Jessica didn't look up. Blake, I've watched you compete for years. Those weren't lucky shots. She's good, really good. The sharp ring of his phone interrupted. Blake answered immediately, tension snapping through his voice. Tell me you found something. On the other end, his investigator sounded cautious. Not much yet. Emma Miller. 35. Senior accountant at Meridian Financial. Moved from Virginia Beach 3 years ago. Clean record, no social media, no shooting competition history. Keeps to herself. Blake clenched his jaw. That's impossible. Nobody shoots like that without training. Dig deeper. He ended the call and began to pace. Who is she? He muttered. Where the hell did she learn to shoot like that? Jessica watched him from the couch, unease growing. Maybe it's time to let it go, she offered gently. Pay the charity, call it an off day. Blake stopped, eyes burning. This isn't about the money. It's about my legacy. Across the city, Emma sat at her small kitchen table, phone buzzing with another missed call from Michael Reeves. Word had spread through the tight-knit shooting and veteran circles. She brewed tea and stepped onto her balcony, the day's events replaying in her mind. Part of her regretted accepting the challenge, she'd never wanted this attention. But another part, the one she'd buried with Nathan, stirred to life. Then her phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar number. She answered hesitantly. Miss Miller. This is Rebecca Johnson from the Elite Shooters Club. Emma's shoulders tensed. Yes, Miss Johnson. What can I do for you? Rebecca's voice held a quiet urgency. I probably shouldn't be calling, but Blake's having people dig into your past. He's convinced you cheated. Emma closed her eyes. Not surprised, but disappointed. Thank you for the warning, Miss Johnson. I have nothing to hide. Rebecca hesitated, then spoke more quietly. I don't know who you are, or where you learned to shoot like that. But Blake Radcliffe has serious influence. His family practically owns half of Boston. If he feels threatened, he could make things difficult. I appreciate the concern, Emma replied, but I've faced real threats. I'll be careful. And I intend to keep my word. After the call, Emma retrieved a wooden box from her closet. Inside were Nathan's medals, his logbook, folded letters, and their wedding photo. Beneath the burial flag, she found pages filled with Nathan's handwriting. Emma. 50 yards. 9 out of 10 bullseyes. Natural talent. Better than most recruits. She traced the lines, the ink still as sharp as the memories. The next morning, for the first time in 3 years, Emma called in sick. She drove to a public range on the outskirts of the city, far from the elite club's marble floors and murmured gossip. For 8 hours she practiced, working through everything Nathan had taught her. Each shot was a conversation with his memory. A promise kept. A lifeline across the void. That evening, a text arrived from Rebecca. Blake requested rule changes. 10 different firearms, varying distances. Board approved. Emma replied simply. Thank you for letting me know. No changes needed on my end. In his penthouse, Blake read the update with satisfaction. Perfect, he told Jessica. 10 firearms, 10 stations, no way she keeps up. Jessica set down her wine glass. And if she does? Blake's smile was thin and cold. She won't. But if by some miracle she gets close. I've arranged a little insurance. The day before the competition, Michael Reeves showed up at Emma's door. You couldn't return a call, he asked, gruff but clearly relieved to see her. I've been busy, Emma said, letting him in. He looked around, shooting manuals covered the table. I've heard. The whole community's buzzing. They sat across from each other in familiar silence. Nathan would be proud, he said. Not just of the shooting, but of you, stepping out into the world again. Emma blinked back sudden tears. This wasn't the plan, Michael. He nodded. The best battles rarely are. But sometimes they're exactly what we need. Before he left, he turned at the door. Be careful with Radcliffe. A guy like that, with money and pride. He's not used to losing, and he won't take it well. Nathan would want you to watch your six. Emma nodded, grateful for the warning. I will. And Michael, thank you. For the pass. For everything. He gave her a small, warm smile. Just keeping a promise to a brother. That's what we do. By midweek, Blake's investigation into Emma had evolved from irritation to obsession. The lack of answers only sharpened his frustration. No record, no arrests, no ties to competitive shooting. She was clean. Too clean. Focus on Virginia Beach, he told his investigator. That's where she was before Boston. Gun clubs, instructors, anything. He paused. And that wedding ring she always touches, find out who her husband was. It'll take time, the investigator warned. Marriage records. I don't care what it takes, Blake snapped. The match is in 2 days. I need answers now. After hanging up, he stood before the glass case that displayed his Olympic gold medal. 8 years ago, the younger Blake had smiled with genuine joy in that photo. Now, even victory felt like armor, not celebration. The breakthrough came late that night. As Blake studied slow-motion footage of Emma's posture and grip, his phone rang again. He snatched it up. Virginia Beach was the key, the investigator reported. Emma Miller is the widow of Master Chief Nathan Miller. U.S. Navy SEAL. Killed in action 3 years ago. Highly decorated sniper. According to my source. Blake felt a chill creep down his spine. A SEAL sniper, he asked. Are you certain? Absolutely, the investigator confirmed. Nathan Miller was well known in the teams. Trained his wife, too. Most thought it was just a hobby, but one contact remembered him saying she had natural talent, exceptional potential. Anything else? Blake's voice was taut. Just one more thing, the investigator said. Miller had a nickname, the Ghost. He could hit targets no one else could even see. Held multiple unofficial long-distance records in the special operations community. Blake ended the call and sat in still silence, the glass of scotch untouched. The story he had built, the lucky amateur, the fraud, was unraveling fast. In its place, a new, far more dangerous narrative was taking shape, the widow of a fallen hero, stepping into the spotlight with skills forged in love, loss, and legacy. Not luck, legacy. A woman trained by a legend. And now, challenging the reigning champion who had mocked her from a throne of privilege. Across the city, Emma remained unaware of the revelation. Her focus was on the looming competition. On Thursday evening, she received another call from Rebecca Johnson. "Ms. Miller, I wanted to update you, there's been another change. Blake requested, and the board approved, a new scoring system. Each station will be weighted by difficulty. The final station will count for 30% of the total score." Emma didn't hesitate. "Let me guess, Blake excels at the final weapon." Rebecca's pause confirmed it. "It's a custom Macmillan TAC 338. Long-range precision rifle. Only 5 of them in civilian hands in the Northeast. Blake has exclusive experience with this platform." Emma felt her pulse quicken. She had trained extensively with handguns, Nathan's specialty, but her experience with long-range sniper rifles was limited. After the call, she sat in silence, understanding the tactic. If Blake had uncovered her connection to Nathan, it was only a matter of time before he used that knowledge to his advantage. The next morning, Emma drove to a specialized range outside the city. She'd arranged private access to practice with long-range rifles. As she pulled into the lot, she spotted a black SUV with government plates. Leaning against it was a tall man with the unmistakable presence of special operations personnel. "Mrs. Miller?" he asked. "Commander Wilson. Former Team 3. I served with Nathan in Baghdad in 16. Emma tilted her head. "I don't recall Nathan mentioning you." "We weren't in the same squad," Wilson replied calmly. "But in the teams, everyone knew the ghost." He nodded toward the range. "Heard you might need some pointers with the Macmillan TAC 338. I've got some experience." For the next 4 hours, Commander Wilson coached her. He broke down the rifle's recoil, wind drift, barrel harmonics. "Nathan taught you well with handguns," he said, watching her tighten her groupings. "You've got his patience. His breath control. This isn't so different, just magnified. Trust what you know." By early afternoon, Emma was landing consistent shots at distances she'd never attempted before. As they packed up, Wilson handed her a small notebook. "Nathan's distance calcs and wind formulas," he explained. "He wrote these himself. Might come in handy tomorrow." Emma took the notebook with quiet reverence. "Thank you, Commander. But why help me? You don't even know me." Wilson's expression softened. "When you lose a brother, you look after what mattered to him. Nathan talked about you. Said you had the calmest hands he'd ever seen on a civilian. He was proud of you." As he departed, Emma realized this was no longer just a competition. It had become a symbolic clash between two worlds, one built on inherited power, the other on earned skill. Privilege versus sacrifice. Flash versus purpose. Back in his penthouse that evening, Blake received final confirmation of Emma's connection to Nathan Miller. His investigator had uncovered the full picture: Miller's reputation, his service record, even the classified circumstances of his death. Blake poured another drink, ignoring Jessica's wary look. "It doesn't change anything," he muttered. "Experience beats sentiment. Every time." Jessica set her glass down. "Blake, maybe it's time to step back. Pay the charity. Cancel the event. This is spiraling." Blake slammed his tumbler on the counter. "Cancel. Confirm I'm afraid of her." "No. Tomorrow goes forward. Exactly as planned." He picked up his phone and dialed from memory. "It's Blake. Is everything arranged for tomorrow?" The call was brief. When he turned back, Jessica was watching him carefully. "What was that about?" she asked. Blake offered a tight smile. "Just ensuring a level playing field, my dear. That's all." The morning of the competition, the Elite Shooters Club buzzed with an energy it had never seen. The board had opened the event to the public, transforming a private challenge into a premium, ticketed spectacle. Rebecca Johnson moved through the crowd, checking equipment, finding subtle irregularities. Small adjustments in trigger weight and sight alignment, enough to trip up anyone unfamiliar with the weapons. Emma arrived without fanfare, dressed simply in jeans and a navy button-down. She carried only a small duffel containing Nathan's notebook. Rebecca met her privately. "There are inconsistencies," she whispered. "Nothing I can officially flag. But enough to give Blake an edge." Emma nodded. "Thank you for the warning." Blake arrived moments later, surrounded by sponsors and clad in gear emblazoned with logos. His smile was sharp. "Miss Miller. I trust you slept well." The emphasis on her name told Emma everything he knew about Nathan now. "You may find the spotlight intense. There's no shame in withdrawing." Emma met his gaze. "I'll manage, Mr. Radcliffe. My husband taught me how to perform under pressure." The range resembled a stadium. Digital scoreboards glowed. 3 certified range masters officiated. Emma spotted a small group in the back row, men with military posture. Among them, Michael Reeves. His small nod grounded her. From the first station, Blake's performance was textbook, efficient and polished. Emma's approach was quieter, more deliberate. She moved with minimal energy, breathing between each shot as Nathan had taught her. By the 4th station, Blake held a slim lead. At the 5th station, Emma noticed the trigger pull was heavier than standard. Nathan's words echoed in her mind: "Equipment fails. Conditions change. Adapt and overcome." She adjusted her grip, recalibrated, and matched Blake's score. As the match progressed, a pattern emerged. Blake excelled with sleek competition firearms. Emma, however, displayed startling consistency, especially with military-grade weapons. By Station 8, the lead had vanished. The crowd, once indifferent, leaned toward Emma, drawn by her quiet resilience against Blake's precision flash. Before the 9th station, Blake approached her. "Impressive showing, Mrs. Miller. Your husband would be proud. The Ghost's techniques are recognizable. I did my homework." Emma froze, her hands momentarily still at the deliberate invocation of Nathan's call sign. Emma didn't flinch at Blake's mention of Nathan's call sign. Her expression remained composed. "Then you know he valued integrity above all else, Mr. Radcliffe. Something to keep in mind as we finish today's competition." When the 9th station ended, the scoreboard showed a tie. It would all come down to the final, most demanding challenge, the Macmillan TAC 338, at an exceptional range. Emma immediately noticed subtle alterations to the scope and stock, calibrations clearly designed to trip up someone unfamiliar with the specific setup. She didn't protest. Instead, she opened Nathan's notebook and found his handwritten formulas for adapting to unfamiliar equipment. She studied them, then stepped to the line. Blake went first, landing 9 out of 10 shots within the inner rings, a near-flawless performance. His score would require Emma to be perfect. "Not everyone's built for championship pressure," he said, loud enough for the audience to hear. Emma took her position behind the rifle. A strange calm settled over her, the stillness Nathan once described before a mission. She adjusted the scope using his formulas, accounting for the sabotage with a soldier's precision. One by one, her shots struck true. The crowd hushed. By her 6th shot, every bullet had landed dead center. As she lined up her final round, a flash of light glinted across her sightline, an intentional distraction from someone near Blake's entourage. She paused, steadied her breathing, and fired. A 10th bullseye. The audience erupted, first in gasps, then in spontaneous applause that rose into a standing ovation. Final results, Rebecca Johnson announced. First place, Emma Miller. Second place, Blake Radcliffe. Blake's mask cracked. He offered Emma a perfunctory handshake, voice low and bitter. This isn't over. Emma's gaze remained steady. For today, it is. And I believe you owe $50,000 to the Veteran Support Foundation. His facade crumbled. You think this proves anything? That a military widow with beginner's luck can beat years of championship experience? This was a publicity stunt. His voice echoed in the stunned silence. The equipment was rigged. It was indeed, Rebecca interjected, raising her tablet. Security footage shows your advisor tampering with the competition firearms, but not in Ms. Miller's favor. The club's system records all access to the equipment room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Blake froze, realizing what had just happened. Not only had he lost, but the truth had exposed a deeper rot. His reputation, and potentially his career, was crumbling. By Sunday, clips of Emma's perfect sequence and Blake's meltdown had gone viral. The story had grown beyond the competition into a national conversation about privilege, resilience, and redemption. Emma woke to dozens of messages from journalists and sponsors. She returned none, except one call to Michael Reeves. "It's gotten bigger than I expected," she said. "What do I do now?" "That depends," Michael replied. "Do you want privacy, or justice?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Blake hasn't paid the donation. The equipment tampering was fraud. There should be consequences." At the Radcliffe penthouse, Blake's crisis team scrambled. "We issue a statement, cite extreme pressure, acknowledge a lapse in judgment," his publicist said. "Announce a donation, check into a wellness center." "I'm not apologizing," Blake snapped. "That woman had military training. That's the real unfair advantage." He was interrupted by a knock. Boston police officers stepped into the room. "Blake Radcliffe, we need you to answer questions regarding allegations of fraud and tampering. We're investigating potential violations of Massachusetts gaming laws, given the financial wager involved." Meanwhile, Emma met with Colonel James Harrison, director of the Veteran Support Foundation. "Several board members also belong to the Elite Shooters Club," he said. "They've begun proceedings to revoke Mr. Radcliffe's championship records." Then, he offered her something unexpected. "Our foundation is launching a marksmanship program for veterans struggling to reintegrate. Shooting sports offer therapeutic benefits. We'd be honored if you'd consider helping lead it." 3 days later, Emma reviewed a settlement offer from Blake's legal team, a $100,000 donation, double the original, along with a public apology and a request for a private meeting before any statements were made. The meeting took place in a neutral conference room. Blake entered with his attorney, his usual swagger gone. "Mrs. Miller," he began. "I want to apologize. I've built my whole identity around being the best. When that was threatened, I reacted poorly. Criminally." His prepared remarks faltered into something more honest. "I've never competed against someone who shoots for reasons beyond trophies. That shook me." Emma met his eyes. "I didn't compete to unsettle anyone. I was keeping a promise. You disrespected a sport you claimed to love, and the charity you agreed to support." Blake nodded, visibly chastened. "That's why I increased the donation. And accepted the 3-year suspension from competitive shooting." They signed the documents. As they stood to leave, Blake extended his hand. "For what it's worth, you're the best I've ever faced. Your husband taught you well." Emma shook it, briefly. "He'd say I was already a good student. Sometimes the right teacher just helps you realize it." 2 weeks later, Emma stood inside the newly completed training range at the Veteran Support Foundation. Funded by Blake's donation, and several unexpected contributions, it was now the site of a reintegration program for veterans. Her first class included 6 veterans, each carrying visible and invisible scars. "Good morning," she began, her voice stronger than it had been in years. "My name is Emma Miller. I'm not a soldier. Or a champion. Just someone who learned that sometimes, the steadiest hands belong to those who've endured the greatest shaking. Today, we start with the basics: how to stand, how to breathe, how to focus. 6 months later, at the Foundation's annual fundraiser, Emma stood at the podium. 1 year ago, I walked into a shooting range for the first time in 3 years, to honor a promise to my late husband. I thought I'd reconnect with a skill, then return to my quiet life. But instead, I found a new purpose, and a community. Then came the announcement, the creation of the Nathan Ghost Miller Excellence in Marksmanship Scholarship, awarded to veterans pursuing careers in shooting instruction. As the first recipient, a former Army Ranger, stepped forward, Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She touched her wedding ring one last time. "This one's for you, Nathan," she whispered. "For everything you taught me about standing my ground." Perhaps Emma's greatest victory wasn't defeating a man who underestimated her, but finding her way back to herself. She had rebuilt a life not in the shadow of loss, but in the light of legacy. For those who had watched her journey, from being dismissed at the elite shooters club to standing confidently at the head of a movement, the message was unmistakable. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Behind silence may lie a storm of discipline, forged through hardship. And if you are ever overlooked, remember Emma Miller. A woman once ignored at the firing line, who turned a moment of disrespect into a movement of respect. One perfect shot at a time.